everybody. Welcome to Podcasty For Me, the podcast about film, culture, politics, and Clint Eastwood, where we watch every film directed by and or starring American filmmaker Clint Eastwood and explore how they speak to their moment in this one. The show's hosted by two Jersey boys. Not really. Neither of us is a Jersey. It's hosted by two guys. I'm one of the guys. My name is Jake Serwin.
I'm one of the guys. My name is Ian Ryan. Now, with all love, Jake, shut up and be quiet. Bring in a guest immediately. This is of the utmost importance.
Our guest today, we're so happy to have her back on the show. She's a film industry professional, social media producer for the Blank Check podcast. And as far as I'm realizing now, this was maybe just an assumption on my part. Are you a Jersey girl?
I'm a Philadelphia girl.
You're
I'm
right.
Jersey.
Right.
I am also Italian American, and my father was in a doo-wop group.
Whoa!
So
that
last not a professional one, but you know,
still.
Maybe we should get a better guest for the show. I don't feel like you're that qualified. Welcome back to the show, Marie Bardi.
Hey guys!
Hi.
Or should I say, hey?
Oh yeah. Now who's that?
I mean, you should. Yeah, that was great.
Come on.
You know what? You should change the Y at the end of your name to an I.
Mm-hmm. It is
more Italianate. I know.
It is nice.
Remember from the movie?
Yeah, I know.
That woman, I believe, is Cuban American. Anyway, Ian, you wanted to lambast me.
I did. I have prepared a 5-point memo to absolutely crucify Jake. He comes in with equally misplaced confidence about the fact that he is going to be able to shut this all down. So, Marie, before I tilt the scales here, I put my finger on anything, I need to ask you. Mm-hmm. Do you think this film is stage musically? Do you think it is like something that brings the stage musical qualities into film?
Absolutely not.
All right. The memo's canceled.
Yes! 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 Hell
terrible.
Yeah, dude.
This is like when you put the witness on the stand and she says like, this guy's guilty.
This was a Perry Mason moment.
This is terrible for me. Okay, well,
God, I feel so.
Let me just give the now necessary context.
I hope none of those were like the expensive Blu-rays that I can't replace.
I'm worried about
Ring.
Them.
Oh, I knocked Gus Van Sant's Jerry onto the floor.
No. Oh no, not Jerry.
Not Jerry. That's the song from the film.
Yeah, Jerry baby.
Jerry.
Yeah. I mean, look, I have a cat named Larry who has been subjected to
several days.
So much. And he is a baby because he's like a little guy.
True. It's true.
He's sick of this. He hates Frankie Valli.
We can do the normal podcast stuff, but the reason that I am so prepared to try to lambast Jake is that from basically the day that I met him, probably not the very first day, but certainly within like 3 weeks of having met him, I immediately realized that I had to conceal my musical theater past, my singing past, because Jake, correctly, I want to say that I'm not saying these positions are not defensible, just that they define all of who he is, basically. He said that stage musicals are abhorrent. Everybody involved with them is a clown and a fool to be ridiculed.
Okay. Ian and I have known each other since we were like 19. Mm-hmm. So my position has complicated and matured like a fine wine that is, it's spoiled as well. Yes. But so I've realized over many years of especially watching movie musicals that the real thing that I dislike and in fact hate are like post Sondheim and forward show tunes and that kind of musical theater voice. There's two things that really bother me. It's like the musical theater sort of style of singing that is, I think, like since like 1980 maybe been sort of the standard, and also the particular kind of show tune that is its own type of music unto itself, its own type of song structure unto itself. Because, you know, I've now watched a bunch of Gene Kelly movies in there.
Sometimes you need to figure out what's not the problem.
And often when there is a movie adaptation of a musical where they have movie stars who can't sing that well sing them and just do the best they can, I like the songs better because I think I find that like highly trained musical theater major voice not to my taste.
Okay.
Now, I'm getting a sense that, Marie, you're about to tell us that you were a musical theater major.
I'm not.
Okay, good.
I gave it up in high school.
Okay.
I might have talked about this on Blank Check, but my last production was West Side Story, where in high school I was a shark, and they made us all go get self-tanner to look more Puerto Rican. Also, I went to an all-girls school, and they wouldn't do gender blind casting, so they had to like bus in all of these boys to take every speaking role except
one of the most
3.
famous areas where you actually can gender bend, and people have been doing it for hundreds of years. They couldn't be as brave as Shakespeare. Cool.
No.
I have a question. Why did they do West Side Story?
No fucking idea. Guess what they did after? Sorry, I mean, so we're racist and we're like sexist, right?
Right, Philadelphia.
Went to a Catholic girls' school. What do we do the year after the West Side Story debacle? The Wiz.
Yikes.
How many black women did we have at my school? 5 across, like, you know,
were any of them in the play?
One of them
actually,
was
seemingly worse for that person, I would imagine, because then it's all on you.
We did the Wiz in my middle school. I mean, I didn't do it, but my middle school did the Wiz. But the teacher let them write an additional song, like Oscar qualification style, except it was like 12-year-olds. I believe my mother it was my stepfather had to leave the cafetorium because he felt that he couldn't stifle his derisive laughter and didn't want to be rude to the children, so he left.
Oh, Jesus!
To be nice. So you're a musical theater.
I'm a former musical theater kid. Also at the same time that, you know, I was being like awakened to issues of race and class in high school. I also was like getting really into indie music, and so I wanted to be in a band, and I realized that continuing to have a classically trained soprano voice was not going to help me at all in that respect. So
you had to kind of Meg White yourself.
Exactly. I had to.
I think we're pretty contemporaneous here, Marie, because I also think that getting into indie music is also the gateway into getting into irony, and that's one of the great enemies of musical theater. So I think it does sort of force you to choose between am I into subtlety and subtext and like, you know, contradictory themes, or am I into big emotions?
Yeah, it took me a long time to get back into musical theater in a way where I could like go see plays on Broadway without immediately making fun of them.
Yeah, how did you find your way back to the Great White Way?
Well, it took a while, like not until after college. And then I realized, I think that there are the musicals that, you know, you bring your out of town family to. Right. And then there are the more experimental ones that, you know, might speak to you in a more intellectually stimulating way. Which is I think it's interesting, Jake, that you single out Sondheim as someone you don't like, because I think he's the non-musical theater person.
Right. Well, they're sort of like contemporaries, right? Like not that they're sort of doing anything that's similar, but they both come around at the same time, mostly, those
Sondheim's
two.
earlier than Weber. Okay.
My problem with Sondheim, and I guess I singled out the wrong guy, but with Sondheim is like, to me, is like to musical theater what abstract expressionism is to painting, where it's like you have to be so into musical theater that you're like, basically your tolerance has to be so high, or like a whatever, like a Lav Diaz or something. Like you have to... Watching regular musical theater doesn't get you the same high anymore, and you need. I
feel that way about certain of his musicals, like Sunday in the Park with George. That to me is like a little too intellectual for me, and also I don't love like speak singy musicals that much, which he can sometimes default to. But like Company and Into the Woods, I think are very accessible.
I really like that. Is it the Maisels brothers who did the Company original cast recording, or is that Pennebaker?
D.A. Pennebaker, I think.
Yeah, I think it's Pennebaker. I like that. I'm into that, but you know, that's a lot of people sitting around talking about how long the day has been. So maybe that's more my speed. Is documentary about people talking about what time it is.
Yeah, let's do the podcast.
We should. Yep. We're gonna keep talking about all this, but let's do the podcast. Okay. Marie, I don't know if you remember our signature segment. Yeah. It's really complicated.
Is it the question thing?
It is the question thing. Ooh, new name. Yeah. The question thing. No, it's called the 2 questions.
2 questions, right.
And your responsibility as the guest during this part of the show is to ask a single question. Are you up to the challenge?
Yes.
Okay, great. Do you want to go first, or should we have Ian go first? Because I think I went last week, right, Ian?
Interesting.
Okay,
cool. Ian, you go first.
Okay.
Great.
Well, mine is farther from the text, so hopefully it doesn't get us off track here.
Okay.
So you, East Coast person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jake, you been to the East Coast. You know about this.
I've lived on the East Coast.
Yeah, that's true. I guess Virginia.
So have you. You lived in New York City.
I did the famous. Mm-hmm. That's right.
You're a big shot, Mr.
So in this film, we get a lot of crime stuff. I don't know. I've never witnessed IRL, I think, any East Coast mobby things. But I did want to ask you guys, if you had to pick your like mob activity that you would make money off of, what would it be?
I mean, I'd love to run a nightclub.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Or maybe I wouldn't run the nightclub. I'd be the person who goes and collects from the nightclub because the nightclub pays the dues, right?
I kind of like the idea of you being like leaned on because you're not delivering enough week in, week out, though, as the person.
No, I want to be the person asking for my. I don't want to be the person who like is always having to
I guess
pay
you're
up.
a producer. It's kind of a producer role, basically.
Yeah. Extracting the funds. I mean, the only way I'm living more than a day is if a Gyp DeCarlo type takes a liking to my little jests and japes. Like I'm gonna have to be a favorite boy. That's the only
really good
only way I can get through this. Same with like a Frankie Valli, like a Frank Sinatra, like a Don Rickles. Like it's gonna be one of those tense Scorsese scenes where everybody goes quiet until the boss starts laughing, and then everyone else finds out they're allowed to laugh too.
What is the song that he sings that Gyp likes? Is it like the eyes of my
mother?
mother? My mother's eyes. Or something?
Yeah, my mother's eyes. Ian, what about you?
Didn't give it any thought before I prepared this question, so I will say
maybe if they have if there's any, the mob is doing any kind of crop rotation. What's some of the other stuff you do? Oh, you could be. We got to talk about this, Marie. I'm so excited you're here for this. You could, in the mob, of course, be the hog fence purchaser.
That's true.
Now it's time to talk about. I don't have any. This is, I guess, kind of an update to this sort of a goose update, but I don't think the geese are involved. This is a farm update. Marie, I don't know if you remember that Ian works on some farms down there in Mexico.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yes.
Now, so Ian, it all starts. Ian updates his WhatsApp photo, and it's a painting. It's a nice painting, and I say, what's the painting that's your WhatsApp photo? I will say it used to be an extremely MySpace photo of you, Ian, for like 10 years. Yeah.
Somehow it seemed like it predated the time that I took that photo. Yeah, like by another 10 years somehow. Right.
It was a period piece. So I say, I'm scrolling through WhatsApp right now. God, this guy texts me so much. I used to complain he didn't text me enough, and I'm coming back around. I'm just looking for where I said ha 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 ha, because that's going to be where it is. Here we go. So I say, who painted your new WhatsApp photo? He says, some big shot from the Rijksmuseum. Now, I'm assuming this is like a Dutch master that, was I supposed to get that? Is it Munch?
No. I
whatever.
really was at the Rijksmuseum and took a picture of a painting I liked, and I don't remember who painted it.
I follow them on Instagram.
Are they a good follow?
I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Great. That's a good call. They have a wonderful app. I'm going to shout out the Rijksmuseum app here.
Which brings us to our sponsor today. The Reich. No, it's a different. It's a little surprise for you. All right, so Ian says, he follows up. Don't remember if I told you. A guy I bought a hog fence from did that thing where he held his phone up. He held up his phone with my WhatsApp photo and looking at us side by side said, "Is that you?" So I had to change it. This is a classic Ian lead burial.
Hog fence.
Yeah, that's right.
So, Ian, what did I say?
I All right, hold on. Well, let me get to you.
Because I said, you said you bought a hog fence, and what did I say?
You said I just call them boxer briefs, which is it's a good joke.
Hey, come on. And then I said, we're gonna hold this for the pod now. And Marie, feel free to ask any questions that you have as well. What? So you said a hog fence, and my first question is it not some hog fencing? Is this all the fencing you needed? Is this sort of like a playpen, like that closes on itself?
How many hogs do you have?
Got 3 hogs at the moment, although one of them's pregnant. So if anybody wants some baby hogs,
I do, but I don't think I'm allowed
getting them. But could be
Ian
nice.
recently posted some hog video. Well, Ian recently posted hog on our Instagram. They're lovely. True. They're lovely pigs, like rooting around in some
have
grass.
A beautiful auburn bristly hair. It's really nice.
Do they have names?
They don't have names. Most of these farms where they eat the animals, they don't name this. I have private names for them, but that's
the famous practice of don't name the food. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'd like to argue. Can I send some tofu down there or something? Can I?
Yeah.
Can I try to contribute to?
This is what I do every time I go there. They are very polite. They give me vegetarian food. Basically, every 3 weeks, they will offer me some meat and say, it's vegetarian meat. Ha ha ha. Very good joke.
That's good joke. Yeah.
So these are newish pigs. The grandfather on the farm, although unfortunately, we're sorry, he is losing his vision, but he wanted to have a little activity to do. So he got some pigs. He loves to just take care of the animals.
That's good.
I wanted to help them get a bigger area for the pigs to run around in. So I searched online to find a place where I could get 50 meters of hog fencing, which is a real type.
Now, this brings me to my next question. Yeah. What are the defining characteristics of hog fencing?
Your classic hog is not going to hop out of a enclosure. All right, hogs are not big jumpers. So what they're going to do is they're going to burrow. They're going to dig.
Yeah, they're diggers. They go down.
So the bottom of the fence has like narrower spaces between the wiring, basically, to make it stronger, more resistant. That's what makes it hog fence specifically. So I talked to this lady online, find a nice deal on hog fence. I think it runs me about $75 for 50 meters, $70 maybe.
Pretty good.
I'm meeting this guy. He shows up, first of all, on a scooter, which really impressed me because he was scooting around town with
kind of like a Vespa, like a Pope's Exorcist scooter, or like a bird scooter?
No, like a Pope's Exorcist scooter. That's right. The main famous film we all know Vespa's from.
Well, when you're talking about scooters and you've mentioned, never mind. I'm not going to disparage Russell in that way.
Roman Hog-a-Day. These hogs are roaming around a lot.
Oh, wow.
They do, and they do be eating probably a hog a day over there. Some of the pork products they got.
They aren't, but
I don't know. Go ahead.
So this guy shows up. He's across the street. He takes a bunch of pictures and sends them to me. I'm in the photos. I neglected to share this part, but he's taking pictures to show where he is. Again, very clearly indicating that he does not recognize me because I'm in all the photos that she's sending to me. So then
hey, I'm next to the stupid guy. Do you see him?
So then I walk over, and he really does do. It's probably like a triple take that he does, and then he holds up the phone and says, "Is this you?" And again, this is a short transaction. This is like a Craigslist style transaction. I'm not looking to get into it with the guy, but truly it did.
Are you on Craigslist or is there a Mexican
Facebook Marketplace
version?
Which they use pretty much exclusively here?
Yeah.
So we conduct the transaction, and I'm happy to be done with this to move on as quickly as possible. But it's just too much to deal with, to think that somebody in no way could recognize me. And look, it's a very old photo. I don't have any facial hair. I'm about 22 years old. I took it in the passenger seat of a car for some reason on a road trip.
Yeah, he's wearing a seatbelt in the photo.
Wow.
I was, yeah.
Yeah, like were you on your way to a date or something?
I believe
like a
this was in
date?
a cross-country. This is with an ex-girlfriend cross-country road trip that we took to go to the East Coast, in fact, to Delaware.
Delaware?
Yeah.
It was his ex-girlfriend, Jill. Dr. Jill.
That's right. Yeah. And yeah, I think that's the extent of the story. The hogs are now enjoying their fence. The goose is involved because a week after I installed the fence, I come back and the hogs are out. And they initially blame the blind grandfather. And I feel very bad to discover that it is, in fact, my fault that the hogs are out, because there's a big hole that leads into the goose house. So these clever hogs, these genius hogs, have snuck into the goose house, and then they wait until the geese get let out in the morning, and then they just make their way out.
Damn. This is another reason why we shouldn't be eating these wonderful hogs. Hogdini. That's maybe a private name you could have for one of them.
That's right.
Well, thank you so much for clearing that up. Man, I do want to point out that your new photo is not resolved. Well, I guess nobody would hold the photo up next to you because it is clearly a painting of a landscape. But
I'm hoping.
Yeah. Damn.
No, it is. I recognize you from your photo. You're the beautiful wave.
My photo is of me having a bad time on a roller coaster, so I don't think it's that helpful either. Is it still? I think it is still, right?
I think it is. Yeah, I think that's right.
We were on that roller coaster. We went on the Incredicoaster together, me and Ian, at the California Adventure Park here at the Disneyland Resort, and that is too much roller coaster for me, it turned out, and I was frowning.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've never been on a roller coaster.
What?
Oh.
Yeah.
Not even the giant... Wait, what's the one on Coney Island? The Cyclone.
The Cyclone? Absolutely not.
Okay.
Wow. Not
even the... Well, have you been to Hershey Park? You're from Pennsylvania?
No.
I've been to Hershey Park. We went and performed... The high school band performed there. Middle school band.
So my middle school choir performed at Busch Gardens in Williamsburg.
Okay. Williamsburg, yeah. That's where the Fabio... That's where the Fabio coaster is. Busch Gardens, Williamsburg. With the goose.
There's a Fabio coaster?
Well, I wish. The roller coaster where Fabio got hit a goose with his face. Do you know about this story? You don't know about this?
This is a famous story. This is a good story.
Yeah. Fabio. So the roller coaster is called Apollo's Chariot because Busch Gardens Williamsburg is like
I do know that roller coaster.
And they thought, let's get a famously hot Italian man. Actually, this will transition us back to the topic. And so it was Fabio. Oh we don't know. It's Fabio and a bunch of models in togas dressed as like Roman goddesses on this roller coaster. He's in the front car, and the roller coaster. Busch Gardens Williamsburg is beautiful. It's in very beautiful woods, and so the roller coaster goes over this lake. Yep. And as it went over, a goose took off because of the loud noise. Fabio struck the goose with his face, apparently killing it, and maybe breaking his nose. We call that. And then the bird strike, exactly. Hey, and we're going to talk about that more in a few episodes. So, and then he pulls back into the station with all the like local news there, because like people like Fabio aren't in Williamsburg, Virginia that much. So like a lot of press is there. Yep. And he just comes back in looking confused and upset, covered in facial blood. Oh, yeah. Wonderful. Great Podcast The Ride episode on the Fabio Goose strike as well.
I should listen to that.
I didn't realize this was a thing. So you've also, our high school choir performed at Disneyland. What is this great tradition that America has of choirs at theme parks?
I don't know.
I think it's a way to make the kids less angry about going on a bus for like 7 hours to go sing somewhere else.
It was like a big 4-day weekend trip with a bunch of like 13-year-olds. It was wild.
It's for a lot of adolescent fumblings to take place while Secondhand Lions plays on the bus TV. Speaking of Secondhand Lions,
it's time for our secondhand question from Marie. Yeah,
time for our secondhand question. Marie, you're up. You're up to bat.
Okay. What do you think you would have been doing in late December 1963?
Oh, I did think about this.
What?
Well, I thought about looking up what was happening in late December 1963.
Do you know what happened a month prior?
Well, I do.
In the Line of Fire style?
What happened, Jake?
Lee Harvey Oswald was framed. That's what happened. He was set up. Yeah.
Yes. So it feels like the national mood would have been terrible. So well,
that creates strong emotions of all kinds, you know?
Well, yeah, we're recording this this is we're in mid-December 2023.
Right.
Isn't that interesting?
The national mood is really high. It's good.
Everything's great.
Everyone's
People are
feeling
happy.
so good right now. But late December 1963, let's see, what's going on here? Oh, I would probably have been voting in the Senegalese election. That's what I would have been doing.
Yep.
And would I have been voting for the incumbent Leopold Sédar Senghor, who was elected unopposed? Probably not.
Well,
I would hope that.
Probably everybody
was he good?
Maybe I don't know. I don't know anything about this guy.
We'll get to Leopold later. Generally, voting for a guy in Africa named Leopold is to be
not a good
opposed
idea.
To be yeah. What about you, Ian? What would you be doing?
In all honesty, probably like thinking about buying a Beach Boys record and then thinking like, well, I could just like listen to it at my friend's house or something, you know, and then maybe I see somebody at the record store and I say, oh, that's an interesting, attractive looking person. And then I leave. I go home.
Yeah.
That's my...
it sounds nice.
Yeah,
so
probably
pretty
nice
similar to
what
you're doing now.
That's what I'm trying to be honest with
Thinking about and
myself.
not doing stuff, seeing people and then leaving.
But having a pretty fine time, so it's okay.
Guy knows himself pretty well. What about you, Marie?
I mean, my funny answer was going to be like obsessing over the JFK assassination, but like realistically, as a woman in my mid-30s, I'd probably be in some sort of like feminine mystique situation.
Nice.
Where I'd have like 4 kids, stay at home all day, be miserable, and have no outlet for my depression.
Yep.
Today we're talking about Jersey Boys. This is a film directed by Clint Eastwood.
There is. Adapted
from the musical of the same name, the Broadway musical, which originated down there in beautiful La Jolla, California. Did you know about this?
At the Playhouse.
Yeah. Nice.
Debuted in 2004 in La Jolla and on Broadway in 2005. It's been produced in... I saw some clips of the like Singapore production of Jersey Boys. Pretty cool. Also, if you guys want to have a good time, look up like Japanese productions of Mamma Mia on YouTube. Really good. People were sort of taken aback at the time, like, why is Clint Eastwood directing the adaptation of this musical? He's not from New Jersey. He's not Italian. He's not. He doesn't seem like the right fit.
He's a musical man.
Yeah, he's been
in a musical.
Yeah.
Famously or infamously.
Infamously.
However, you know,
it seems like a weird pick. Jon Favreau was originally announced to be attached to the film version of the play, which makes more sense in terms of at least made swingers type era of Favreau. I gotta say, my first reaction, I was expecting a lot more of the prank phone calls.
Jerky Boys?
Yeah.
That's the joke?
Yeah, that's what he's doing. Yep.
All right. Yep. I was expecting a lot. I don't know. I was expecting something else. But had you guys seen this before? Marie, you had, right?
Yeah, but fairly recently. I didn't see it when it was released because I wasn't yet Clint pilled.
Yeah.
This was 2014, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
Ian, what about you?
Never seen it before. I think there's a couple near misses on going to see the stage show, but also had not seen it. I was big into Frankie Valli towards the end of high school for whatever reason. Just one of those, little things that you could just put on repeat.
Well, you were a 10 or 2.
I was. It's true. So maybe it was aspirational if I could become 10 or 1.
This play was on Broadway until 2017. So Marie, you were in town while it was playing. Did you ever have a chance to see it?
I did not see it. Yeah, I think I thought it was uncool at the time. Because this is like 2006 is when it wins the Tony for Best Musical. That is like peak me in high school. Musical theater fucking sucks.
Yeah.
And
I wear black now. I listen to songs with names that are too long.
Yeah.
What kind of indie rock?
Exactly.
What kind of indie rock were you into? Or is this like, what's your?
I mean, we talked a bit about this on the Killer episode. So I like went through like a Major Smiths phase, but also like Elliott Smith.
Okay, one of the Smiths.
Anything that was like depressing.
Sure.
Or you know,
Robert Smith.
Dark.
Tragic in some way.
Yeah.
Nick Drake. I went through a Nick Drake
Sure.
phase, a Syd Barrett phase. And then in terms of more contemporary bands, like, you know, all the ones that people are embarrassed about liking, like
now.
Yeah, like the Decemberists.
Sure.
Yep.
A lot of
the fucking thesaurus band.
Yeah, did
like,
you ever go like Victorian
did you ever wear like a corset over like a big flowy dress?
Or like a
absolutely not.
No, like whaling hats or whatever.
No. It's more like beanies and scarves and like layers of t-shirts and like that kind of thing.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
Ian, were you?
Is it?
No. I was gonna say I watched.
No.
So I watched a audience cam. I watched some clips of an audience sort of secretly filmed performance of the Broadway show.
I did too. Or I like.
So did I.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it sucks. Like it was really corny, and so much of it. So it opens with like a French rapper doing like a remix of What a Night or whatever.
Correct.
And then
like a contemporary cover, like a I should say,
and
new
so
cover
much of it is like
Night.
there's a lot of, I mean, obviously it's theater, so you have to play to the back of the house or whatever, and it's mostly Broadway. It's like musical theater guys getting to do the biggest accent that you're allowed to do. Yeah. So it's so much mugging, and it's also just like everyone, they just turn to the audience whenever they say Jersey, and everybody goes crazy, or they like name very specific towns.
I will say that I read that Frankie Valli was unhappy with this adaptation, so I immediately went to the book. I was like, okay, let me give this a shot. You know, let me see what is he, because he makes it sound unsubtle. He says that it gets away from the music, which maybe is one of the only kind of justifiable points. The music, you know, is not as heavily featured, but basically all my least favorite scenes from the film are directly from the musical, line for line.
Well,
all the stuff with the wife, like you're a WAP who didn't graduate from high school or whatever. That's literally in the play.
The turns to the audience, the monologues at the end, the little asides, I did not like those. Those are all of that is in the play.
Ian was always doing this. He'd start talking about something. Half the time I wasn't even listening, but you know what? The audience loved it.
Yep.
We were just four guys standing under a street lamp singing a hard note.
Hey, if you don't get it, you're not from Jersey. Like, all right.
Do you know what's funny
that's a real line.
I mean, it's good.
They had the cast of Jersey Boys perform at the Emmys to like honor the end of The Sopranos.
Okay.
There's no overlap.
Well,
there is overlap between the movie Jersey Boys and The Sopranos. There's some shared actors.
Well, and Frankie Valli in The Sopranos.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna. So I have this recollection. I was trying so hard to find the clip, but whenever I think of Frankie Valli or Frankie Avalon or any of the Frankies, any of these little guys, I hear in my head Junior Soprano, Dominic Chinese himself, saying, Italian boy singer. Like the phrase, Italian boy singer. And I could not find the clip. I was going through like transcripts I was trying to search transcripts of every Sopranos episode. I don't know if I dreamed this, but yeah, I mean, Jersey was having a moment, certainly. Did you feel, as a Philadelphian, did you feel jealousy? Did you feel pride? Do you feel like when something good happens in Jersey or whatever, like, do you guys get Springsteen runoff over there or Bon Jovi? Like,
100%.
Yeah. So he's like an honorary Pennsylvanian.
I went to a private school where 25% of our student body was bussed in from New Jersey.
Okay.
So a lot of my friends lived in South Jersey, and you just, drive over the Ben Franklin Bridge to hang out on the weekends. Everyone goes to the Jersey Shore.
Right.
It's very intertwined.
I understand you go down the shore.
Down the shore.
They got their own verbs over there. They got like new grammar.
Yes, they do. But Frankie Valli, I didn't realize, is actually from North Jersey. I would get him confused with Frankie Avalon, who is a South Philly guy. Okay. There's like a mural, where like there are two famous cheesesteak places in South Philly, Pat's and Gino's. Both are racist.
Right. Everybody.
There's like a big
the real like Philadelphia thing is like, don't go to either. Go to a third one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there's like a mural of like the South Philly, little guys who made it big in the music industry. And it's like Frankie Avalon and Bobby Rydell and a bunch of other people whose names I can't remember. But I always thought that Frankie Valli was part of it until it was like, oh no, he's from Newark.
I think you're forgiven for getting confused about that.
I think this is all.
There are differences. Like there's a major North Jersey, South Jersey cultural rivalry.
What I love about this movie and what I find pleasurable about reading about it is how like exuberantly people involved in the film and in the film say that they were the first to do something when they definitely weren't. So I think there's like a this confusing the Frankie Valli thing. Like it's all of a piece. This myth making. This ahistorical celebration of things that aren't worth celebrating is a wonderful thing. First of all, when you look into the beginning of the play, which was written by Marshall Brickman and Rick Ellis, Marshall Brickman, of course, a Woody Allen collaborator.
Yep. Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, co-wrote Annie Hall, Sleeper, Manhattan, and Manhattan Murder Mystery.
Wow.
He's an interesting guy. Brickman he's the...
Oh, yeah? Is he a weird guy? This guy hung out with Woody Allen?
Well, he was interesting before that. So he was a child of New York, like Upper West Side lefties. Paul Robeson sang at a fundraiser at their apartment. Bob Dylan crashed on the couch or whatever, all that stuff.
Cool.
Marshall Brickman gets into the banjo, like playing folk banjo at the height of the folk scene. Good enough at it that he goes to Moscow to perform, like in high school. And he's going to go on a tour of Mao's China, but his parents say he has to finish high school. Mm-hmm. Later, he becomes a comedy writer, and he gets a job writing for Carson when Dick Cavett leaves to pursue stand-up. And like I think on his first day, like the head writer quit and was like, "Here, kid, you're the head writer now." So he becomes the head writer for Johnny Carson for like 10 years.
Yeah, 60s, 70s stuff.
Then he hooks up with Woody Allen, and he writes a bunch of stuff with him. And then he writes and directs some of his own movies that no one's ever heard of, but they star Alan Arkin, that kind of thing. And then he hadn't had a produced screenplay since the 1994 film Intersection, which no one's ever heard of. Has Richard Gere in it. In 2021, to answer the question that you're both thinking, they're fools because Woody didn't do anything, he says in 2021. I think the hatchet job they did on HBO is nothing to be proud of. I'm just waiting for the backlash. Sometimes there will be a piece in one of the papers, and they'll put Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby and Woody Allen in the same sentence. I think that's terrible. I think that this cancel culture has ruined too many lives already. So that's Marshall Brickman's take. I can think of some other stuff that's ruined lives as well. But so unrepentant. But he and this guy Rick Ellis, they talk about the genesis of the play. Ellis does in such like nakedly commercial and sort of mercenary terms. Where he's like, "Well, my friend who works at an ad agency came to me and he said, I own the rights to all the Four Seasons songs. We should do a musical."
Didn't it originate with, what's his name, Bob Gaudio?
No, they go to Gaudio afterward because like just somebody owns the catalog.
Brought the project.
Well, the way that this guy tells it, they own the catalog, and what is it, Smokey Joe's Cafe, which was a musical review of a bunch of Lieber and Stoller songs. That's just a review, like nothing to connect them. Had been a hit on Broadway. It was the longest running musical review in Broadway history. So they're like, there's an audience for this. Let's meet with the Four Seasons guys. And then they find out that they were mobbed up or like nearly, that they all remember things differently. Like the whole biopic thing. And this is, I think, at least one of the first jukebox musicals to be a biography.
Yes, a story of the band itself. Yes, because Mamma Mia was such a big hit, but they ABBA songs and transposed them onto a different original story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the jukebox musical or the musical assembled like from already popular songs goes back to, say it with me, The Beggar's Opera in 1728.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. So it's it's been around forever. Not the first. They put this together, and a lot of the Tommy DeVito stuff especially is literally him, like, I guess, sitting at a diner table being like, you want to know what happened at the beginning? You got to talk to me, Tommy DeVito. As far back as I can remember, I wanted to be one of the 4 seasons. You know.
Truly, it is just this. It's like the lowest hanging fruit imaginable.
Well, when the movie started, because it starts with a song playing, you get, first of all, Clint's been doing the black and white. We haven't like officially charted the black and white Warner Brothers logo. He does it off and on, starting maybe with Bird. Like it goes back a ways. But he's been in black and white WB logo for a while. This one is like Matrix green. Did you notice
it's like
that?
a weird blue color correction.
I like it because it seems like the black and white is for the thinker pieces, right? For the ones you better pay attention
like trouble
to.
With
and
the
I will
curve.
Say that that's right. Yeah. Basically, all the parts that I think drag the most in this film are the ones where it's trying to do or say anything of significance or be, like Marie was saying, intellectual. I think for me, when I was having fun is when this just leans into being just silly nonsense with just people goofing around singing famous good songs.
I like the musical portions of the film because the songs are good.
The songs are great.
Right.
That's the main strength of the piece, I think. But Clinton brings some other stuff to it. We do just have to shout out one of the most accursed symbols in Hollywood, which appears
the Rat Pack Entertainment logo.
You better believe it. You better believe it. I was shocked to see
this.
Did
you see who else is a producer on this film?
No.
Manooch.
Jeffrey Epstein.
Steve Manooch.
Well, pretty close.
Yeah.
Pretty close.
Yeah. Probably some guys who met. Maybe took a trip together. Yeah. So some cursed shit. But I think that also speaks to how weird it is that this is one of those movies that is like gonna happen before anyone is involved. It's like, who do we get to make the Jersey Boys movie, which we're obviously going to make, because it was a huge hit. Everybody loves these songs and has heard them even if they never think about them. And also nobody knows about any of this, but everybody loves Goodfellas. So like it's you know, it's obvious. The play, we should say, also is basically like a black box show. Like there's no sets. There's props and projections and sometimes like lighting effects and stuff. But I was surprised watching the clips to see, because I thought I was watching like, you know, special performances at the Tonys or whatever. And then I realized, no, there's just no set. It's like, it's nothing. And this movie is very much set, you know, it's not doing anything particularly Brechtian in its set design or anything. It just looks like, you know, it's fairly realistic.
No, it's just telling the story on screen as it happens in the film, basically. You know, they go to Ohio, we're in Ohio. There's no real divergences, except for the parts we were talking about where we get like a little bit of a chronological play around where we leap back 2 years to get the retelling of something.
And the play also is chopped up into 4 seasons, which I don't know how they got that idea. Where each sort of act is narrated directly to the audience by a different member of the band. I believe it begins with Tommy DeVito, and then Bob Gaudio is sort of the, like, you know, rise to prominence, or like the, you know, the heady years. And then Nick Massey talks about the sort of dissolution of the group.
Right.
And then
do we get Frankie in the movie? Like, does he ever talk to the camera?
We get a tiny bit of Frankie talking, mostly at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Like, it's like the last scene. We get like a couple lines of Frankie to camera. I mean, we can talk about, like, I have so many questions about the choices that are made in this movie. Couple more just sort of top line, like what the deal is with this movie thing. Clint decides early on he doesn't want to cast movie stars. He wants to mine the casts of these productions because it's been running everywhere. Like the number 1,200 shows keeps coming up. He keeps saying, like, why wouldn't I want to cast someone who's played this role 1,200 times? And so,
but it is very appealing to Clint, especially the man who doesn't want to rehearse ever, to say this.
Well, but also, you know, the film lives or dies on the harmonies of the four guys. So to find people who, and I was under the impression going in that it was a cast, like that it was a previously assembled cast.
It was a
mishmash.
And so you have this guy, John Lloyd Young, who plays Frankie Valli. He won a Tony. He was Frankie Valli on Broadway. He originated on Broadway. Everybody loves this guy. Everybody speaks very highly of this guy. It was down to him in the West End, the guy who originated in the West End. And that guy, whose name I don't remember, was Frankie Valli's favorite. And I like that Clint just basically said, fuck you, I like the other guy.
I feel like to hire Brits to play the Jersey Boys would be like disrespectful.
Yeah.
And to like an American movie.
I think so.
I understand that in the West End, they do what, they have to do with their actors over there. But, come on.
Marie, I sent you, I think I sent this to Ian as well, some video of British casts of Jersey Boys. They do not have it. They're missing something over there. I mean,
well, I considered this as my two question of, we kind of don't have the ability to ever answer this, right? But were these white doo-wop people, were they ever cool for real? I mean, obviously the Four Seasons seem to make an argument for them being cool. Certainly my contact with this type of music, I did reveal to Jake also that I was in a doo-wop a cappella group in high school.
And what were they called?
We were called the Singing Guys. The Singing Guys. Yeah, really reached deep for the, yep.
Oh boy. I like to imagine that there were like 6 hours of discussion of what to call you. And then the only thing anyone could come to a consensus on was the Singing Guys.
Yeah, we all wore white t-shirts tucked into jeans, which of course, if you are like a bunch of white dweebs from an extremely rich area, yeah, we were wearing shoes.
I don't know. It seemed like,
but you can imagine how this looks. This does not look like West Side Story street toughs. This looks like people who just never learned how to dress are all on stage together for some reason. Anyway, it's some of the least cool stuff you can imagine. So I guess my question is just like, what is the continuum? Obviously, these Brits, they're total duds. So is it possible? Is it only like middle-aged white people who imagine that it's cool to watch white doo-wop, I should say, or what?
So I have a lot of questions about the Four Seasons and their sort of position in this whitewashed music industry, because their songs are all original to them.
Yes.
Right? Like that's the whole point of them getting Bob Gaudio involved, is that he would write the songs. And so often it would be like I just watched a HBO documentary on Little Richard,
right,
but
exactly.
Little Richard would make Tutti Frutti and then Pat Boone would record it, and then that would become palatable and accessible. But the Four Seasons seemed like they were not part of that ecosystem. There's like a lot of stuff in the movie about people assuming they're black.
Yeah, this is a thing that people talk about.
Tom Hanks, he's white.
Yeah. Well, this is a thing. Like I remember reading or hearing somewhere that I believe it was the Sopranos' own little Steven Van Sant talks about learning, like getting into an argument with his friend who told him that Rod Stewart was white, and he's like, "No, he's not." Which I mean, now it's sort of impossible to imagine hearing Rod Stewart's voice and thinking of anyone but the guy with the hair. But like, yeah, this was a thing at the time. I mean, there's the guy who slams the door on them because he thought they were a black group and like can't in the Brill Building, and I can't market them, I guess, if they're white guys. But yeah, there's the Italian aspect as well.
But I think at this point, like, we just had a Catholic, or we're about to have a Catholic president.
We're post Sinatra.
Not Italian, notably. But, still. But post Sinatra, I feel like Italians have assimilated enough at this point in America where,
Maria, I was going to ask you, do you have any family members who have a unironic picture of the Pope in their house?
My father.
Yeah? He's got the Pope up on the wall?
Yeah.
Does he have anybody else? Does he have Kennedy?
He has Kennedy.
That's good.
Whoa,
and
cool.
and Sinatra. Wow. And also I inherited.
And are they all playing pool in some kind of a fantastical?
No, they're all separate.
Okay.
The Pope thing, it's actually not our current Pope.
Some Papa Francesco?
It's Pope John. It's not Francis. It's Pope John Paul II. It's like
I would have bet
carving.
$1 million that it was JP2.
Yeah. JP2, the first Italian Pope. It's not true. Patently false.
I think was he the first Polish Pope, though?
He might have been.
Do you know he was a filmmaker?
I did not know this. No. What?
We watched like a movie that he wrote.
What?
And because I went to Catholic school, it's.
Yep.
I mean,
it's
very
film?
interesting. Not really. Okay. It wasn't religious. It was like, I don't know, but very interesting thing that people don't really talk about.
Well, when we finish up Clint, we're going straight to JP2.
Straight to the Pope. Love it.
Paul.
Yeah. That's good. That's crazy. So you're from this mix. You're from you know from Italian family.
Yes, my father is Italian American.
Did he ever send you with like the dinner you didn't finish when you left the house?
No.
Frankie no mange? None of that?
Okay. Yeah.
Is it okay?
Too bad.
The voice that we're going to be doing. Is that okay?
I think it's okay.
It's okay.
Great.
It seems like it's coming from a place of love and respect.
It's at least one of those. It's love and respect. I mean, this is the most fun way to talk, I think, right?
Yeah.
Is that okay to say that Italian Americans have figured out basically the most fun way to speak English, at least?
Yeah.
One of them. Yeah. And they're all great at it, which is funny because like when you watch the behind the scenes stuff, like John Lloyd Young doesn't have this accent. He also doesn't have like the reedy voice. He just talks like a normal guy.
I know. It's very strange.
It is a little bit annoying.
It's very musical theater, though, to say that I don't just have to do the singing voice. I have to pick the speaking voice as well.
Voice of Frankie Valli.
Well, and he's 39 or something in this, playing like 15 at the beginning because he's played it on Broadway for like over 10 years or whatever. So like, he simply cannot be that young mathematically.
So you're saying there's sort of like something that would happen on stage that's now happening in the film? Is that what you're talking about?
There's sort of some stagey elements of it.
Very interesting. Now, interesting to me.
Just to talk about the cast quickly. So we've got John Lloyd Young as Frankie Valli. We've got Michael Lamenda as Nick Massey, who was also Clint apparently went to like a bunch of different productions of it. Like he went to see it in Vegas and picked the guy he liked, and he went to see it in San Francisco and picked the guy he liked. He saw it on Broadway. I love
just imagining like
Clint really funny
off Broadway Jersey Boy production, like in Mulholland Drive,
the Vegas production that's 89 minutes exactly, so they don't have to pay some whatever like a union overtime. Do you know about this? That all Vegas musical stage
I don't know
musical stage adaptations in Vegas because I think they have there's a different actors union in Vegas. If the show's over 90 minutes, they get like double time or something. And so often when Broadway musicals come to Vegas, they will chop as much of it out as they can, usually just the non-songs part, so that they can get it to 89 minutes so they don't have to pay anybody extra. And so when I saw the Vegas version of Phantom of the Opera, it is without dialogue. It is incomprehensible because they cut out everything that wasn't a song. And so you just have to kind of figure out what's happening. I mean, it was cool. There was a big chandelier that fell on everybody, but yeah. So Clint goes around. He sort of does location scouting, but with Italian boys. Not all of them are Italian. Then you've got Vincent Piazza, who is the exception to this rule. He did not play this on stage. Vincent Piazza is Tommy DeVito. He was on the Sopranos a couple times. I recognize him as Lucky Luciano from Boardwalk Empire.
Boardwalk Empire.
Lucky Luciano, the real guy, was, I believe, Gyp DeCarlo, the real guy's boss, incidentally. You've also got the guy who plays Bob Gaudio's name is Eric Bergen, who was in a touring company of Jersey Boys. And then there's a lot of other people in the show, like the guy who plays Norm Waxman, Donnie Kerr, he originated the role of Gyp DeCarlo all the way back in La Jolla. So he was like one of the very first people, and he had played a number of roles in the show. He auditioned for DeCarlo and then told Clint, by the way, I can also play Norm Waxman. Like I know all of that. And he's like a singer and a dancer, and it got, you know, all these things that he doesn't get to do in the movie because he's playing, you know, a mob enforcer guy, and he's great. But it's very funny that he's like from the show.
You know what? Now that you're saying this, I'm also realizing that in some ways, this casting choice is also totally opposed to Clint's ethos, because his whole idea is that, you know, this is like the first time you've ever said these words. This is the authentic experience. And of course, Broadway theater is amongst the most finely tuned, extremely almost
least
spontaneous. Isn't all of the singing in the film recorded live?
Yeah, the singing is all recorded live.
So you get that sort of.
Well, and they all talk about how different it was to play it to a camera rather than as loud and broad as you can. Some other folks from the stage, you've got Renee Marino as Mary. You got the woman who plays his second romantic interest. What is her name?
Lorraine.
Erica Piccinini. And a little connection between Erica Piccinini and J. Edgar from last week. Her husband was Armie Hammer's lawyer. Or might still be. I don't know. But yeah. So, and there's more guys throughout that have been in the show, but guys, gender neutral guys who have been in the show. And
then you have some non-show people who, again, this is part of, Marie, you were talking about the rich crossover with Sopranos. I mean, originally I was thinking
Bobby
this is
Bacala.
You do.
For
you got Charmaine.
Bobby Bacala's
Charmaine.
Bobby Bacala's also in Hereafter. He plays an Italian.
He's
teaching an Italian cooking class, and his name is Carlo.
I follow him on Instagram. He's got a very small dog.
Ooh,
it's funny.
I like that.
He always carries his little dachshund around with him.
Great.
He's like such a big
Mickey
guy.
And,
Speaking of, when you said Bobby Bacala, it reminded me, Ian, it's time for the bit. You got to open that email. I sent Ian an email. This was basically a ripoff of a bit that like J.D. Amato did on Blank Check. That was the funniest thing.
You predicting
the funniest thing anyone's ever done on a podcast. This is not going to go nearly as well. Ian always has a little name, a display name here on the video call. And I tried to guess it. So will you read what I said in the...
I will, and I have to give him extreme credit because this was the first thing I typed in. You get one extreme credit. I typed in something and then Zencastr reloaded and I switched. So you were... This is like as this sliding doors. You would have been correct. I'm so sorry that this happened. You have written in here, comedy bit, do not open until I tell you to during Jersey Boys record. Then a bunch of dashes just in case I open it on accident or something. Your display name will be Mr. Bobby Businessman, which they say in the film. Yeah, wonderful line.
Unfortunately, it's...
Didn't happen.
No. Yep. So, but yeah, Bobby Bacala reminded me of that. We also got, crucially, Christopher Walken as Gyp DeCarlo. And I like this casting. I think it actually works really well to have the one guy that everyone is impressed by and intimidated by
be an actual movie star.
And they all talk about how excited they were to work with Chris Walken and Mr. Eastwood. They all call him Mr. Eastwood, which is cute. Donnie Kerr, who plays Norm Waxman, he was excited because it was his 50th birthday during the shoot, and he got to do a scene with Mr. Christopher Walken on his 50th birthday, and he was...
Yeah, Walken's great. This Gyp DeCarlo character, I mean, it's mostly highlighting his sentimentality and his attachment to Frankie Valli. So I think having Walken, who can really do that and be kind of, menacing without ever doing anything menacing, is a classic choice. Real life Gyp DeCarlo, first of all...
Bad guy.
Again, I was assuming that Jersey Boys was just stealing from The Sopranos, but arguably The Sopranos is stealing from the Four Seasons, because I guess the family that they were involved with, there's one New Jersey family called the... what?
Did they take like a robe or something?
No.
From the Four Seasons.
Yeah.
Chain of hotels.
This family...
he's part of the Genovese family.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Genovese family.
They make the pesto. Isn't that where pesto's from?
That's true. Right. It is from Genoa. Yeah. But the real life family of the Sopranos, as much as it's based on a real life family, the Sopranos crossover is that the quote unquote real life family that the Sopranos are based on is this guy, Richie the Boot Boiardo. Incredible character. Go look this guy up.
All of these names are fake. Yeah. Like they're so.
If you look up the Wikipedia for Richie the Boot and scroll down, he had one of these like bizarre shows of wealth that really also demonstrate that you're just like a theatrical little child, even though he was responsible for, whatever, dozens of murders or something.
Like a Donald Trump golden toilet kind of thing.
In his garden, he had like little statues of all his family members in color. And then he had a big statue of himself on a white horse. It's really
Richie
good.
the Boot, you said?
Anyway.
Hold on.
Richie the Boot. Yeah. So this is the guy who was like controlling a lot of Jersey. Angelo DiCarlo was one of his capo regime, one of his like captains, basically. They're all under, as Marie was saying, some higher up people, Genovese people. They were absolutely responsible for bribing the mayor of Newark at the time, Adonizio, and also got pardoned by Nixon about 10 months before he died. He'd only been in jail. This is Gyp DiCarlo for like 10 months or something, or 18 months. And unfortunately, here's where it gets sad. So he had cancer and he was petitioning supposedly to get out, as like compassionate release, which I think we could take a stance on this podcast. We, release for aging people in prisons is like a wonderful place to start to deconstruct the carceral system. So I support that. And he did die shortly after. But this is a man who they caught on tape basically talking about the nicer ways to murder people, saying, I did a murder where I shot somebody through the heart. And that was one of the nicest murders I ever did because the guy didn't feel any pain. And then they also had a ton of evidence that he arsenic poisoned somebody after beating him nearly to death. So, yes, this pardon from Nixon, very strange, probably because there was a connection through Sinatra, where Spiro Agnew was a friend of Sinatra. Sinatra was a friend of Gyp DiCarlo, and that's enough to get you out of prison, basically, in Nixon era United States.
I know it wouldn't be true. I've tried so many times in my life to be the little court jester to someone who I feel physically threatened by, and it's never worked. But maybe Nixon would have liked me, Maybe he would have protected me.
You missed your ticket.
Yeah, I did. Mr. Ticket will be our guest on the show next week. So I think you said Rich Tapestry earlier. I was thinking about we should have Rich Tapestry on the show too. So,
we should.
Yeah, we get kind of the story of these guys who are from, hardscrabble New Jersey, like totally mobbed up New Jersey. They talk about how the only way to get out was to join the mob and probably get killed, join the army and probably get killed, or get famous.
Get famous.
And they did 2 out of 3 because they got a little mobbed up too. And it reminds me that like something I think about a lot, which maybe is a bonehead thing to think about, but we think of artists as, sensitive, emotional, often physically weak, kind of head in the cloud type. What's his nuts in Bright Star? The John Keats, Ben Whishaw, John Keats.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But like, these guys who are, they like Tommy DeVito knows how to play the guitar. They know how to like sing and come up with harmonies and stuff. They're also like very scary men. It's same with like, my long held position that when you think about it, rap beefs are just like mean poetry. It's like guys who literally want to shoot each other to death, who are like coming up with rhymes about it, which is such a silly thing to do.
What makes it confusing is that you have all these people thrown into the mix together. Some of them are Drake style pretending to be like this. And then some of those people are really like this, right? So I think the artifice and the reality are so blended up that it's hard to say like, who are these guys acting mobbed up, acting Italian-American mafia, versus who are these people who were just basically, soft members of the mob.
And then you also have like a Bob Gaudio who just is from a different neighborhood and he's like, I don't care about any of this. I just want to write pop songs about who wears short shorts,
And who's like a commercial operator, right? That's the other end of the music industry. So you get people who can pretend to be artist types, or maybe it's not pretend, but can be the artist types while being very aware of how to be commercially successful.
Yeah. So they sort of, do we have any highlights of this early section where I mean, when they try to steal the safe and it tips the car backwards because it's too heavy, that's just some classic, hijinks that I enjoyed.
I like the appearance of Joe Pesci.
Yeah, this is a real thing that I knew about before this movie. Yeah. This was sort of a party trick fact that I knew that, Joe Pesci introduced the Four Seasons to each other or whatever. There's a weird moment in this where no one has said Joe Pesci, and then Vincent Piazza
like, is that
to
Joe
camera
Pesci?
Still says, yeah, that Joe Pesci. And like, no, we didn't know it was Joe Pesci. They called him Joey. Joey Fishes. But they don't even say Joey Fishes till later. But yeah, a young Joseph Robert Pesci or whatever his name is.
I like the scene where they break into the church.
They break into the
for the acoustics.
For the acoustics.
But this is kind of like the blending of the two, right? Because they're breaking the law or whatever. But like for the beauty of singing a pop song with the good acoustics, and you also hear, because I really like the voices that the guys do. I have a problem with music biopics where someone is singing in a much more modern, like an anachronistically modern style. Like, for example, Beyonce in Cadillac Records, like, doesn't sound anything like Etta James. She's singing like Beyonce, and it's whatever she's good at hitting the notes, but like it's a very different style. Whereas here, I feel like they're really getting pretty close to the way people sang in 1957 or whatever.
Yeah,
we get some weird references. Topo Gigio comes up. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Topo Gigio.
He's a mouse puppet on the Ed Sullivan Show.
He's an Italian mouse. Yeah, we like that. And then they're watching Rawhide also, right? There's like these little choices.
Yeah. And isn't that like during the whole Walk Like a Man?
Well, so Rawhide,
part.
The party.
The great Peter Labuza, a great film writer. He had a great review of this movie from 2014, where he calls this moment where instead of having sex, Bob Gaudio is he's looking at images of Clint Eastwood as like the most homoerotic moment in Eastwood's filmography, which I do think there's something interesting.
That is not true.
Going on. Sure.
Yeah, that is.
It's
not
certainly
true
not.
at all.
I just watched Tightrope. Is that the name of the movie, Tightrope?
Yeah.
Which he didn't that is a gay ass movie.
Yeah,
but anyway.
And it's a nude ass movie. It's an oiled ass movie. Yeah. And also when Clint cleans himself with his t-shirt in Bridges of Madison County. And also in J. Edgar, when the two men kiss is maybe yeah, but it's interesting. It's an interesting moment, but we're not there yet because they're not famous yet. So, they're playing around. They keep changing their name. The Varietones, I kind of like that one.
Four Lovers.
The Four Lovers, and then they find this guy. They're like in and out of prison. I like the part where Tommy DeVito says hi to the cop letting him into the prison, like, "Hey, how you doing?" kind of thing. At Rahway, and then they meet Bob Gaudio, who I didn't realize Who Wears Short Shorts was like a real song.
This is one of the things I looked up. Yeah, this was fascinating.
He also wrote them.
I thought it was just like a commercial jingle for like razors.
Yeah,
exactly.
I guess it was Nair actually, which isn't a razor. Anyway.
Did you guys have any? Well, Marie, you didn't because you went to a Catholic girls' school. Ian, did you know anybody in high school who was like, "Hey, I nared my balls"? Did you ever know anybody like this? I knew two guys like this. Two different ones. One of them was named Max. Don't remember the other.
I didn't know men used, or young men.
They don't
used Nair.
I think it was he sort of like did a Jackass alone and then had to tell people about it afterward.
Do you think it like started out as like he was like legitimately trying?
Maybe.
I
like,
think it
the
definitely
quickest
did.
possible
There's no
it's
way
supposed to
that
be
he
painful.
intended.
Nair is supposed to like burn
I've
or
never
sting.
used it because I always heard it burned you.
Yeah,
so
and if it's burning your ankle or whatever, like I'm not.
Yeah, why would you put it on your balls?
Maybe it was, and also
if
if that's something you like, again, keep that to yourself. I'm at school.
Sure.
I don't need this to distract me from my learning. They meet Bob Gaudio. They meet Bob Gaudio.
Mm-hmm.
In this scene, you've got Francesca Eastwood, by the way, as well as, do you guys know who the other waitress is? Her name is Alexandra Ruddy, as in Albert S.
Al Ruddy?
Ruddy, as in Miles Teller from The Offer. She's the daughter.
Wow.
And
is this 4 weeks running that The Offer has come?
Yes, probably. She comes back in Cry Macho as hippie girl. So she's just like a young woman that Clint Eastwood knows he can plug in if he needs. And she's uncredited in The Social Network as a waitress. So yeah. But they this is where Bob Gaudio brings up the interpretive correlative. Is that what it is? What is the objective correlative?
Yeah, T.S. Eliot.
He's the classic. He's a brainiac. He's not like these rough and tumble guys.
These street toughs.
Marie, have you ever received anything that fell off the back of a truck, so to speak? You ever been given stolen goods by one of your Italian friends?
No.
Okay. Does that happen anymore?
My dad, I don't. They just arrested some members of the mob in New York like 3 weeks ago. But it was like for petty shit. Okay. And I think there was like a segment on MSNBC about it, and the anchors were like reading their names and like laughing about it because like the Italian mafia is such a joke. But my dad, we have some mob connections in our extended family.
Yeah, some see-through socks at the
he would sometimes deliver suspicious packages on behalf of his Uncle Frank.
And was Uncle Frank a real uncle, or was he sort of...
Uncle Frank was a real uncle. Okay. But he was a character.
Have I told the story on this show about the person I was told to contact if I was ever really in trouble? Have I talked about this? No. My dad has a fraternity brother who married a Russian woman, and once, sort of apropos of very little, my dad said, if you're ever like really in trouble, call your uncle, this guy. But then after that guy was in a very bad car accident and is paralyzed from the neck down. So I don't know if I'm calling him anymore.
That's so sad.
Yeah, he seems to be doing well about it. He's got a good attitude.
Okay, that's good.
Back to the movie. So Gaudio comes in, and then they write these demos, and we start...
Take him to Bob Crew.
Yeah, we start to get this kind of dichotomy between Frankie and Tommy. Tommy's like the street guy who's, can't get his shit together. And I start to see tell me if this is a stretch to you, Ian, but I start to see some of the Clint well-behaved libertarian come through here, where Clint is the kind of guy who will say the government shouldn't tell you how to act, but also he incidentally doesn't drink or smoke too much, doesn't eat very much meat, doesn't tend to break the law.
Like personal discipline.
Yes, personal responsibility stuff. And so we get they start to split. And Gaudio, I thought that maybe because of the way Bergen was playing it, I assumed this character was gay until...
Me too.
Yeah, until we get to meet Bob Crew, who... if Mike Doyle wasn't gay... Then
this would be a
real hate crime. Yeah.
It's still not great.
It's because I was reading that the real Bob Crew was never as outwardly gay presenting or flamboyant as he is in the movie.
I think you probably read the same thing.
Yeah.
I liked that his brother described him as, every time he met a new person, going John Wayne mode, which is really funny to say.
But that part, I just wonder if the character is written as flamboyant in the show. Because I think one of the threads of the film that I wish was explored more, that I've seen people like Peter Labuza or whatever point out in their reviews, is presentation of masculinity, especially with Italian American men, and the fact that these guys they're there's a macho element to it, but they're singing, you know, like their balls are being cut off.
Yeah.
So like
he was contending that this is well explored or just something that could have been there in the film.
I think it barely is there. And I would have liked to see more of it. And then all of the like Labuza reviews of like, this movie's actually like Clint Eastwood's most like introspective film about like his own relationship to masculinity. I'm like, you know, I'm doing a jerk off motion with my hand. But I think like the Bob Crew character could have been an example of, you know, putting on a front and then being a, you know, different types of masculinity, the performance of it. But no, it's just, he's just a mincing queen the entire
Frankie Valli is like I mean, he is not a traditionally masculine figure by, like you're saying, by virtue of his falsetto voice, and he's a very small man. When he's on The Sopranos, they constantly say this. They say he's like the mayor of Munchkin Land or whatever. I forget what his character's name is.
I was watching like a TV performance of Sherry from this like 1962. And I was like shocked when the camera panned over to him. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God. He's like so
he would often perform like sitting on a stool and stuff just to not draw attention to it. Which is, I'm not here to belittle our short kings. I'm just saying, I agree with you, Marie, that this is such ripe fodder for saying like, you know, what's going on? How is this guy's in the mob? Is everybody in the mob kind of performing masculinity? Right. Is that why it comes off as so strange and like
dramatic
sometimes?
Joe Pesci, who is literally in this movie as like a real person,
guy named Joseph Russo plays him.
Made a career out of, you know, playing that type of person,
being the scary short guy who flies off the handle.
With a complex.
And even the guy who plays the Joe Pesci character in the movie at one point says "funny how" to somebody. Like there's little Goodfellas jokes.
I didn't love that, to be honest. It's okay. I forget it.
Thank you. So this we should say this is sort of a Clint Eastwood short king too for this and J. Edgar. Although it's been 3 years since J. Edgar. This is the longest break Clint has taken since 1977 to 1980 between The Gauntlet and Bronco Billy. Yep. Took a step back.
What was happening? Like, did he have projects fall through, or was J. Edgar such like a failure that it kind of took him a while to get something off the ground?
You'd have to ask somebody who hosts the Clint Eastwood podcast. I'm not sure what was happening. I know that, so we get this, and then it's like the Changeling Gran Torino year, where this comes out in June, and then American Sniper comes out in November of the same year.
Yeah.
Right.
So it may also have been working on both at the same time and
doing pre-production stuff and deals.
Also, this movie premiered at the Sydney Film Festival, which you don't really hear about that one.
That's very strange.
I don't know why. Anyway, Short Kings, Joe Pesci. There is in the scene where Frankie first goes up and sings with Tommy DeVito's band, and that there's that redheaded woman in the front table who starts to. She like immediately swoons when this guy sings so high.
I was very confused for me.
But I think that was like a thing. I mean, I think that.
Well, this was my question. No,
I
think
like
this is what I'm asking.
Italian boy sing a type thing. Like I'm imagining now. Mimi Rogers in Austin Powers explaining like you could have bad teeth back then and be a sex symbol. You know?
No, but okay. Frank Sinatra was very good looking,
but wasn't he short? Also, wasn't he kind of small?
He was short,
but he had beautiful blue eyes that were like huge and like a lot of natural charisma, which I don't know if Frankie Valli has the same level of natural charisma. But
that's why there's 4 of them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just like I don't really. It is interesting because the songs are so catchy.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, it's one thing to be like a pop star who has extremely catchy songs, right? And it's another thing to be. I mean, I guess it's like he also has supposedly a boyish face. I mean, I think it's
I don't know. He looked
accidental.
old.
Well, he is
Every
old.
photo I found, it's like he looks fucking old.
Yeah.
No, like from the 50s, he looks like.
Oh, sure, I like that. Yeah, it's true.
Oh, yeah.
But
I have no idea how old he actually is.
People aged
in these
faster
photos.
back then, because of the Depression.
It sure did. Yeah, and the smoking. And what I'm saying is that I think it's interesting to have theater kid people do this because, again, it's revealing that this is not like an authentic cool guy thing to do, to sing this way. This is, I mean, at least to me, this is like a produced, mannered way of singing. But I mean, I'm not saying that it wouldn't have caused a young redhead to swoon, but I agree. This is not, at least to me, this is not like Perry Como, or maybe there was no real cool Italian singer. Maybe it's all artifice.
Caruso, remember, from Fitzcarraldo? There's that pig who loves him.
You're right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna pull out the old big brain read here and let you guys fight me on this. Okay. Because I think this movie's strength actually has very little to do with any questions of masculinity. But I see in this movie, and I was enjoying myself in a regular sort of, like, I love the Commitments is probably the movie I've seen the most times. It's just like an infinitely watchable movie, followed quickly by
thought about rewatching it for
that
this
thing you
for
do.
This discussion.
Like, I love movies about bands. I was in a band in high school. We weren't that good, but we had a good time. You know, four guys in mom's basement making too much noise, finding that sound. Yeah. You know, what's better? And so I was enjoying it on that level. And then when we get to the end, specifically at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, where they're doing Ragdoll, I love that they've saved one of, like, the most nothing songs. All of these songs share the characteristic of being about nothing and just being catchy. But, like, one of the least, like, I guess I'd heard this song before, but, like, to save Ragdoll for the big performance at the end is very funny. But there's a moment, they're in the old age makeup, which it's sort of both better and worse than J. Edgar.
I think it helps that their faces aren't as recognizable as, like, Leonardo DiCaprio's, but continue.
Hoover's. But they're in the old age makeup.
They are, sure.
And they do a spin, and then they're young again.
They're youths.
And it's corny, but, like, this then segues into the end credits, which for me, this is not from the play. This was a Clint Eastwood idea that he brought to the film. He brought the choreographer from the original Broadway production in for the whole movie and had the guy whip this up, where you get this curtain call, basically, where the four guys are standing under the street lamp. It's funny that this thing that Clint Eastwood came up with is, like, the image of this movie. It's like, this is the poster, this is whatever. And they're singing Sherry, and then it transitions into What a Night, and they sort of start running through the street. And everybody from the movie, you know, it's a curtain call. Everybody from the movie, all the characters show up, and they're dancing with them, they're singing with them. The lighting starts getting stagier. It actually reminded me of that scene in Twin Peaks with Ray Wise, where there's just like a bright white spotlight on him, but the light starts getting stagier. Everybody's singing and dancing, and then they stop, they finish, and they hold, and they're, like, out of breath, and they're doing the thing from the end of The Artist or whatever.
Cutting between people as they're all holding
these kind of canted angles. And this, I think, is what is brilliant about the movie, because...
Okay, I'm excited. I want to just tee you up, because this is when I was at my most insane about how mad I was at you for saying that you like this movie and that you are who you are, because I was watching this scene in particular. I was like, if this to you is not stage musical, then I just don't even know if we're watching the same piece of art.
I'm thinking about Clint Eastwood, and to me, this seems pretty clearly to be the Warner Brothers backlot as well. I'm thinking about...
Oh, it's very, like, explicitly
Clint Eastwood, the guy who works with the same guys for decades. Your Bruce Surteeses, your Fritz Mainses, your Lenny Niehauses. And imagining this as a kind of heaven where you get to meet everyone you've ever had a relationship with that went sour, but you're all happy. Everyone is at the peak of how much they're getting along, and your wife and your mistress, your Gumar, as it were, they're both dancing with you and doing a little Broadway smirk at each other, but then they do some choreographed spin away from you. Everyone is happy with you simultaneously, and I think that there's something very moving to me about Clint depicting this. We also know that he maintains pretty friendly, like, public relationships with his many romantic partners. on Instagram, I'm seeing that Morgan and Francesca and Scott and Allison are always liking each other's photos on Instagram despite having different mothers. And there's something about a guy sort of looking back on what it was like with the boys making entertainment together that is really moving to me. And also, these are just entertainments. Like this is not a biopic about songs that changed the world. No, there's no montage of 60s protests with For What It's Worth playing or whatever. No one is under any illusion that these are anything but catchy, which I think is also kind of what Clint would like to argue his films are. He refuses to ascribe any political meaning to any of them. So I see this as, I read the Clint into it. The death of the author has itself died. The author is back. And I found it very moving.
I think this is an incredible read. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Jake. I also think you're correct because...
Incredible as in like not credible, you mean?
Okay. No. As in, I think this is a terrific read. I don't know if we mentioned Nick Massey was dead by the time they wrote the original stage play, the stage musical, and certainly is even more dead by the time the film came out. Yeah. Tommy DeVito objected to several things that were explored in the film.
He said I was the cleanest of those guys. I never put towels on he literally the kind of thing you shouldn't say. Yeah. Exactly.
I think it's very funny that Clint would be attracted to this. Obviously, Sandra Locke, one of the people who would probably have the most to say about it, this not being a fantasy land, is also dead. Cannot object to his revisionism. We didn't even mention one of our favorite things to talk about: absentee fathers being redeemed, basically on film somehow, because he's talking to Francine, and he becomes a dad who just gets to have like important conversations
exclusively,
basically.
The big conversations. Yeah.
Right. That's how you can be a good dad, is just show up and say like, don't you want to do this with your life?
The thing that
I'm telling you that you should do.
Stop smoking. And you get that big freaky looking dude from Invictus. He was one of the Springboks in Invictus. That's right. Guy.
That's right. The one you texted me a picture of.
Yeah. Yeah. Just look at this boy, I think I said.
Yeah. So to have all of this like fantasy on his part, like you're saying, to be able to run through the eras, to maybe not have a super clear sense, but again, that's part of the revisionism. We get a climax in the film is that they have to come up with like a hit post Francine's death, which is totally unrelated to the chronology in real life.
Fake.
Right?
Yeah. Well, I also I think this plays to my argument, because
I know I agree.
There's something there's something very like specifically affecting to me about this guy who like doesn't write his own songs, channeling his grief, and in the movie, like this is not how it happened in real life at all, but channeling his grief into a song that is unrelated, but he is a performer before he is an artist. He's an entertainer. And so like the way that he's clearly working through this in a song that is like he's working with what he's got to kind of express himself. I don't know. It's interesting.
What do you think, Marie? You think this is a fool? You think we have a fool on the podcast?
No, I mean, I find this movie very frustrating.
Yeah.
I don't feel particularly emotionally connected to any of the characters.
Oh, yeah.
Including Frankie Valli. So having that moment of, I guess, what's supposed to be catharsis after his daughter, who we have seen in 2 scenes, dies. Yeah. I mean, I like don't care.
Yeah, she looks like Poor Thing's Emma Stone Origins. She's like a baby version of.
This is so clearly written by people who just do not give a shit about children or like what their stage of development, or what they're thinking. He talks to her when she's like 9 and says something about mommy's special medicine or something. 9-year-olds know what alcoholism is, basically.
We saw this in Hereafter, in fact.
Yeah. So yeah, go on, where you're saying that I'm with you. There's zero emotional investment for me in the film.
I feel like I tried to watch that like shitty amateur video of Jersey Boys on Broadway. Sorry, it sounded like I was about to talk about your hog video again.
Yeah,
the amateur video of the Jersey Boys. And there was this. I was like scrubbing through it because it's like 2 hours 20 minutes long, and I was like, I don't have time for this. But there was a part that I thought was interestingly staged, where they're performing on TV on stage, and so there are cameras like on stage to the right of them, and they're, you know, singing to the cameras, but then because it's also a stage musical, they have to do gestures to the audience. And it was like some really interesting blocking that was happening. The dancing was interesting. The way that I just saw more ingenuity in the blocking of that one stage scene than I saw in anything in this film. And I don't think he like attempts to do anything with pizzazz until the last scene of the movie. And it felt like there was like a gun held to his head.
There is a distinct, like, let me make some choices moment, basically at the.
Well, it's like, hey, you want a musical number? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll give it to you. We'll do it in the end.
I like
the grand finale.
The choreographer said that Clint decided he wanted a Bollywood ending to this movie, and I would love to know if he knew.
Is that true?
Well, that's what the.
Did he see Slumdog Millionaire and was like,
yeah,
that? You know, like,
yeah, that's actually probably where I got it from. I was guessing that Clint came up with this idea independently, and the choreographer very generously assumed Clint was being influenced by all the Bollywood films he watches. But you're right, it almost definitely is Slumdog Millionaire.
I mean, maybe I'm not giving Clint enough credit, but
well, that's the big question of this podcast is
right.
What is the appropriate level of credit to give him? He did learn the choreography himself because the cast wanted him to be in the shot at the end, and he just said that would be too much, which was probably right. But that I will be extracting a GIF of him dancing and posting it to the Twitter when this episode comes out.
Is this his only film that uses like footage of his prior film work?
Well,
in it,
Trouble with the Curve uses some footage from Tightrope in a brief flashback.
Diegetic. I mean, it's like in the film, it's supposed to be showing young Clint.
Yeah, it's a young version of his character.
Yeah.
Right, but this is like Clint Eastwood, the actor, exists in the world of Jersey Boys.
It's the first one that we've covered, I think. And actually, thank you for reminding me, Marie. I have an important announcement to make. So,
okay.
We are, I think, once this is out, our Patreon is up, which is called Paid Costly for Me, and it's thank you. It's this show except less free. We'll be covering all of the Clint Eastwood movies prior to Play Misty for Me, as well as all manner of Clint Eastwood ephemera, and that's the topic or the section of the Patreon purview I'd like to discuss here, which is. Joe Pesci appears in this movie, and so all Joe Pesci's work is now fair game for the Patreon, and we are starting with Bupkis. We're starting with Pete Davidson's Bupkis. I think maybe 2 Patreon episodes per episode of Bupkis, probably, just to make sure we get to everything.
Have you guys watched any of Bupkis yet, or will you be watching it for the first time?
No. I saw the billboards of Pete Davidson smoking in the Hudson River or whatever. No, I cannot believe Pesci doesn't act for 20 years or whatever. Comes out of retirement for Marty, gives the performance of
Welcome to Mooseport
4 lifetimes, and then
wasn't
he's like,
he in a Louis C.K. thing?
Pesci?
I don't know.
I thought it was. Let's look it up. Let's look it up. Pescatarianism. No, that's not what I want.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not.
The Good Shepherd. He was in the Good.
Okay, Joe Pesci was asked to do Horace and Pete, and he wouldn't do it. So
hey, and
okay.
Shout out to him. He also was.
Yeah.
He did the voice of the King of Mosquitoes in a Russian CGI movie called A Warrior's Tale.
Have you guys seen the photos of Joe Pesci's house?
No.
Okay, hold on.
What does Joe Pesci's house look like, please?
It's just got all kinds of Joe Pesci ephemera in the house. Like, it's like a... Okay, I forget what podcast I was listening to where someone brought this up. So if I send you a link in the chat here, you can't see it, it will work. Okay.
By the way, Pesci is going to be in a 2023 film called Day of the Fight, the directorial debut of Jack Huston.
Isn't that the name of the Kubrick thing?
Maybe.
Wasn't that his first documentary thing he shot? For,
that sounds
magazine?
Right. That sounds right. But
Day of the Fight.
This stars Michael Pitt and Joe Pesci and John Magaro and Ron Perlman.
Michael Pitt
and Steve Buscemi. So
speaking of Boardwalk Empire.
Yeah, speaking of Horace and Pete, and also it's produced by Colleen Camp. Colleen Camp, the co-star of Sandra Locke in the film Death Game. Game of Death, whatever. The thing that was remade into Knock Knock. It's all coming
Colleen
back.
Camp was in something recently.
She's great.
That I was surprised to see her in.
Joe Pesci sells extremely 1980s New Jersey mansion for $5 million from the Los Angeles Times. The Art Deco style mansion screams Joe Pesci. Been sold by the man himself. This looks a lot like the house from
these photos.
Yeah, it looks like the house from the party in Wolf of Wall Street. First of all,
yes.
Oh my God!
Look at the photos of the interior.
The Lethal Weapon 3 pinball machine, Pesci posters everywhere. This is decorated like I mean, the media room at least is decorated like a man cave. Like it's
it looks like junk. It looks like a Miami mansion that would get blown up in a Michael Bay film.
Exactly.
This is
it looks like
terrible.
the end of Bad Boys 2. Really good.
He's got like a carousel horse randomly in there. A lot of gold chandeliers. You know, it's wild.
Was it Valley Girl that you watched recently, Marie? Because Colleen Camp and Frederick Forrest are the parents in Valley Girl, and it's really nice to see them together again.
Hold on, I'm gonna look this up. Colleen Camp. I mostly know her from They All Laughed that she's in.
The Bogdanovich?
The Bogdanovich.
She's in that. Were you thinking of...
She's very funny in that.
Were you thinking of
I'm
Father Stu? Where she plays motel receptionist.
Were you thinking
or
about
Spencer Confidential? Is she a Wahlberg guy now? She's a Wahlberg guy. She's in all these Wahlberg movies.
Hold on. Okay. She's also in Amsterdam. It might have been, but I didn't see Father Stu.
Okay.
I don't know. Hold on. I need to find the answer to this.
Colleen Camp cast coming soon.
Oh, I know what it was. It was the recut version of Squirrels to Nuts, or She's Funny That Way. The Bogdanovich movie with Jennifer Aniston that someone recently... Did you hear about this? They found the director's cut on eBay.
No, I did not hear about this.
Love these.
And because it was released, under a different name and, a very different form that, been taken away from him. And then someone found his cut.
It's like when Paul Schrader put
that on a hard drive.
Paul Schrader put his director's cut up on Pirate Bay or something for Dying of the Light. Do you know about this?
No. Okay. Cool, though.
Related to this, I don't think I've told this story on the show. And you'll see how it's related to it at the end. At my old apartment, I lived near a Ralph's that had a very weird parking structure where you had to spiral down in your car down to the park.
Yep.
You remember this, Ian, when we lived together?
People were always almost crashing into each other.
I have a big scrape on the side of my car from this thing years later.
Yeah.
And one day I'm driving down the spiral thing, and there's this fucking guy who's walking down the middle of it.
I know who this guy is.
Walking so slow. He's got a weird piece of paper in his hand.
Was it Joe Pesci?
No. And I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? I'm losing my mind. And finally, almost at the bottom, the guy, I think, notices me and turns around to give me sorry, kind of wave. It was Topher Grace. Why was Topher Grace? This is not a Hollywood
famous Star Wars Phantom Menace recutter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
He also recut She's Funny That Way, and this news is going to come to light soon. But anyway, that's my Topher Grace story. So do we have any final thoughts about Jersey Boys? A movie that, honestly, I've come back down on it a little bit. No thanks to you, Ian. It was all thanks to Marie explaining that there
I didn't want to do this to you. You've admitted in past episodes that it can sometimes have a curbing effect on your enthusiasm for a film.
That's okay. No, I mean, I think I first of all, if a movie ends strong, that's, that's just a good trick to do. Like, you should end
the movie, and this movie ends fun. I did not have the experience you had in terms of it hitting me. It mostly was just, I mean, we get a medley of what is it? Who Loves You, Sherry. What else is in there? I mean, these are just great songs.
And then it ends on "Oh What a Night," which is one of the all-time bangers.
But also, "What a Night" was, and "Who Loves You," I think, were both after the breakup of this original lineup. And the lead singer on "Oh What a Night" is not Frankie Valli. It's somebody who came in after.
Yeah.
And in this movie, throughout this movie,
but that song was still written by
Bob Gaudio. And they allied so many things. He had a stepdaughter who died tragically the same year as his daughter's overdose.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Yep. Well, and Bob Crew, I mean, we're talking about this weird artifice simulacrum versus reality mix. He was also writing for like Roberta Flack and stuff. He was writing for iconic, doo-wop soul R&B singers at the same time that he's writing for these people. And they moved from doo-wop to disco. They're basically taking two of the most poppy commercial forms of black musical art and making them even more commercial. And this is, like you said, this is only touched on in just the barest way in the movie. So to not care about that, to not care about the masculinity, it's basically just telling the story in the most boring and superficial way possible, which doesn't mean that the music is not fun to listen to. I mean, you talked about That Thing You Do. If you just have a good song, That Thing You Do plays 7 times in that song.
That's the best
Every
song
time
ever
I hear
written
it.
for a movie.
Sure.
It's so good.
It's so good.
But you also get more of the joy of making music.
Yeah,
I didn't really get any of. We see them like reaching sort of like benchmarks of success.
Yeah.
But we don't really feel it. I didn't feel
What's funny about these guys is that like the most interesting thing about them is, I guess, the juxtaposition, but it's really like all of the stuff that wasn't the music, and
which is
they're
crazy.
Interchangeable.
All that stuff is boring in the film to me.
Yeah.
I do need to point out, Bob Crew, recording as the Bob Crew Generation, did the original soundtrack. He did not. He composed it with a guy named Charles Fox, but he performed the original soundtrack for Barbarella.
Whoa,
oh, that's cool.
Weird?
Yeah, this is a fascinating figure.
Fascinating guy.
I want to see a Bob Crew guy.
Yeah, we just get like a little parody joke about his
feet
New
Lady
York
Marmalade.
Friends.
Marmalade.
Oh.
Is this a flub that I'm never gonna live down saying Lady Marmalade? Is this the new Pulitzer Prize?
Wait, what did you call it?
I called it the Pulitzer Prize once, and I got.
No, you called it the Pulitzer Prize.
No, it is the Pulitzer. It is the Pulitzer.
No, it's Pulitzer.
It's Pulitzer.
Thank you, Marie.
It's Pulitzer.
It's Pulitzer.
He not only made a mistake, but he's now coming back to say
No. Hold on. Okay. All right. YouTube is coming up. Hold on.
Okay.
We had a whole discussion about how Joseph Pulitzer, he pronounced his own name Pulitzer. His wife told everybody this is how he pronounced his name, even though his family pronounced it Pulitzer. The Pulitzer Prize is called the Pulitzer Prize.
Hold on. Okay. That's too loud. The 2023 Pulitzer Prize announcement.
This is dramatic music.
Welcome to the 20.
Is this the same music they used when Nathan Fielder was going to get his penis exposed to a bunch of children by a robot arm?
23 Pulitzer Prize Awards.
Yeah.
Pulitzer.
I'm Marjorie Miller, administrator of the Pulitzer Prizes.
I know. I often consider this podcast to be some type of like Greek mythological punishment where you and I just drive each other insane.
Jesus Christ.
It's crazy that you would have revisionist history about something that happened like 3 episodes
I can't believe that I've done this to myself. You know, it's like the British guy that I can't believe you've done this guy, but it was me punching myself.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, fuck. God damn it. Marie, you're not allowed to come back on the podcast because of this. This is your fault. Okay. No, wait, we have to, what was your dad's doo-wop group called?
I don't even know. It wasn't like a real thing. Also, like his dad had like a wedding band. It was just like everyone was an Italian boy singer back in the day.
What's interesting is they are like wedding band level guys who just got really famous, mostly because of Bob Gaudio. Like they were the guys who sang the songs first. We haven't even talked about, Frankie unilaterally taking on his deadbeat friend's $500,000 in debt. Which, like,
that's what Jersey boys do.
I do have something that I might need your help with. We'll talk about after the show. But
the tax fund.
Yeah, the podcasting room tax fund.
But even that, this is to me a miscalculation. Do not inherently feel pity for people who are taking on a $500,000 debt, because that means you're in a situation where you have a $500,000 debt, and there's like this. These stakes that they think are stakes are not stakes to me.
I also think that's I think it was an absolute dick move for Frankie to just be like, we're taking it on. Not there are other people.
There's other people involved in this group. Decision. Yeah, I mean it's kind of this where trying to find extra. I guess extra legal or non-governmental ways of sort of handling problems in a Clint sort of I don't need to get married type of way. Where
that's one of the interesting things about the mob that we've talked about before is that they are an extra legal way to solve issues that they basically just reinscribe themselves, right? To solve the problems of corruption or violence or theft or anti-Italian racism.
Well, we find out with DiCarlo, they also are the state. Like they're all tied together.
Yep.
Tommy DeVito even says, like, if you want to get something done in Jersey, you don't vote for it. You go to Mr. DiCarlo.
Mm-hmm.
Don't rip money in half. Also, that's mess up to do. You guys ever tear money in half by accident?
Absolutely.
Not on purpose.
Yeah, not on purpose. Yeah.
When I was a kid, somebody told me that if you have 51% of a dollar bill, that's the full dollar bill.
Mm.
You ever heard this? Is this like a weird playground lie?
No, I believe there's a real thing, which is, you can tape back together currency and it's still currency.
What if you do 2 different dollar bills? Will they know?
No, I think probably they would.
If you Frankenstein them.
Mm.
My friend in high school used to make Yu-Gi-Mon cards. Shout out to Bob if he's listening. Where he would cut
like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah, he would cut them in half and he'd mix them up so they'd have different powers and stuff. I like it.
Yeah.
That's
that's the kind of creative energy Jersey boys needed, and it had none of
it. Yeah. Well, that's what Clint did with all the different casts. He made a Yu-Gi-Mon card.
Yu-Gi-Mon.
Yeah. I'm probably gonna owe Bob money for talking about Yu-Gi-Mon so much. Anyway, he was in my band in high school, and which is the reason why I like.
What was your band called?
We were called the Wingmen, which I was never crazy about because there was a band called the Wingmen that sold CDs through their website, which were designed to help people with help children and people with intellectual disabilities remember all the steps of personal hygiene. So they had songs about taking a shower, and it was like, now we're using the soap. Now and one of them.
That is not what I thought it was going to be like a pickup artist.
Yeah, well, it sounded like that too, but like it sounded like that as well. But they had the songs.
It's incredible to me that you were so close to something that you never gave those songs a listen, huh?
Yeah. They had lyrics specifically about how now it's time to wash our private parts.
Yeah.
Which
damn.
That is an important step.
Wait, what can I ask some more questions about your band?
Yeah, please. I wanted to be called Lizard. Not for any particular reason.
I think that's a really good name.
Thank you. I just thought that was a cool name for a band. Yeah.
What instrument did you play?
I played the drums. but I also fancied myself something of a band leader, so I tried to make decisions. I would write the lyrics as well, and I played the guitar, but I didn't in the band.
He's a multi-instrumentalist.
Thank you very much. I also wanted to be called the Dead Dogs, but my mom said that if we were called the Dead Dogs, that we weren't allowed to practice in her house. So,
wow,
I do also like that name.
Do you think that's a good name? We were going for sort of an alt country thing for about a month and a half, and while we were doing that, I was like, we should be called the Dead Dogs.
I was in a band in high school called Dance Floor Diplomacy.
Okay,
featuring two prominent members of the New York City dirtbag left, who I no longer speak to.
Is it
they kicked me out.
Two of the most prominent ones? Well, I guess I don't. Depends on what we're thinking of the dirtbag left.
Let's say they're not necessarily political. They mostly talk about movies. They have a podcast and a Patreon, and there are two of them.
Okay, fair enough.
They're guys.
Yep.
Okay. I think we're on the same page. Blank check.
You're
talking about what did you play in the band?
I sang, and I got kicked out because I chose to go to senior week.
Yeah.
Which was after
squares?
Graduation from high school, you go to the Jersey Shore.
Okay.
You rent a house with, your friends, and
GTL.
It's like your big end of high school party week.
Yeah.
And they're like, you don't take our band seriously. We were trying to be acoustic girl talk.
Whoa.
So like mashups of pre-existing songs.
Without just actually sampling anything, just singing.
Correct.
Okay.
We would be performing.
That's
wild. Do you have an example of a mashup
arrangements
that you would do?
I can't. The only one I remember really working on, it had something to do. It was like Moneymaker, which was was it a Ludacris song? But I forget what we mashed it up with.
Interesting.
But it was fucking terrible. And now these guys are annoying as shit.
Well, I think you made the right call. You went to senior week.
Thank you.
What if you had been dragged down into the muck with them? God forbid.
Can I ask some Philadelphia area questions as we wrap things up? Yes. And maybe this is a Jersey question as well. What is the term for when you are drunk and high on weed at the same time in Philadelphia, New Jersey area? Do you have a word for that?
Not that I recall.
Some people call it cross-faded. I've also heard crossed.
Okay, I've heard
twisted. Twisted is another one.
I mean, I don't recall having a specific slang term for that.
Do you have a favorite slang term from your place of origin?
Did you ever say John? Did you say John?
Yeah. Are you allowed to say John? Is John? What's the
John.
Race class nexus point of John? Is that everybody?
Everyone says John.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
It may have originated in the Black community in Philadelphia. I'm not actually sure.
Most of the good slang terms tend to, I think.
I do want to go back to the beginning of the podcast where you said Italian American people figured out the best way to. You mean to kill us before we start the podcast?
Yeah.
I think there's a number of other people who have figured out interesting ways to speak English, but just not ones that you and I should try to do.
Sure, and also Scottish guys or whatever. It's not you know.
Are we around the same age? Are you guys in your 30s?
I'm 32.
I'm 31. Yeah.
Okay, slightly older. I'm about to turn 35. Was Jersey Shore on MTV a major cultural touchstone for you guys?
Well, not for me, but for my peers.
It was huge. I was already in college when it came out, but
I went to a high school party. I'm
gonna call bullshit on that right away. But continue.
You're right too. This is one of the only parties I attended.
Okay.
You've been to this person's house, Jake. I don't have permission to talk about this.
Oh yeah, nice guy.
And very nice guy. Got there, drank for one of the first times in my life. Immediately broke a $600 Italian antique chair, and was just was just terrified to ever do anything cool again.
Well, having been in this house, it's not like this was the only expensive thing they had, though. They had other.
That's true. That's true.
But breaking antiques is,
it's tough,
frowned upon.
Yeah.
But was it a Jersey Shore themed party?
It was. Okay. Yeah, we were all dressed up like you guys from the Jersey Shore.
Your hair?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
Did you have you had a real situation on your hands? Sounds like.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I never watched the show. I found myself, I thought I was above it, and then I watched one episode of it in college where they go to a nightclub. So you guys...
Oh, and Snooki gets punched?
I don't even know if that's the one where that happened, but they're in a nightclub and Snooki is dancing with a guy, and it's so loud that they have subtitled what she's saying, but she's extraordinarily drunk and has her arms around this guy, and she just says, "I want to make you chicken cutlets." And I thought, there's no way the show is going to get better than this. So I'm turning it off.
It actually,
I loved this.
It does.
Oh, it does?
It's so.
Should I go back and watch the Jersey Shore?
The first season of Jersey Shore is some of the best television ever produced in America.
I'm worried that coming to it backward, having seen like Kroll Show and so much Jersey Shore parody material, I'm worried that going back to it might.
I think I'm trying to think of okay, so I was like watching a lot of OJ stuff recently for I don't know why.
Yeah.
Made in America?
He's not back in the news. So I rewatched Made in America, and then right after that I watched the People versus OJ.
Okay.
Ryan Murphy stuff.
Right.
And my husband he wasn't watching the doc with me, but then when I had the dramatic show on, he was watching, and he'd be like, "Oh my God, did that really happen?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, it did.
Mm-hmm.
I just watched the footage, the real footage in the doc. Like that crazy shit did really happen."
Yeah.
So I think you'll have a similar experience revisiting Jersey Shore. Well, you'll be like, "Oh fuck, like they really are that orange, and they did get that drunk, and everything that homoerotic, and it like it's just every sort of like it's beyond parody to begin with."
I'm excited.
So
I mean, it's a complex scene because I think a lot of the parody is kind of like lazy classism, but I agree with you that the original cultural object is so potent that it deserves attention. I think that even if the jokes about it are lazy, the people are right to be fascinated.
And there is like it's tapping into a thing that you see a lot with depictions of Italian Americans.
Yeah.
Like the mafia, the family bonds.
Yes.
The chosen family bonds are,
right.
Like with our Jersey boys with, choosing to pay off Tommy's debts. I mean, it's like, it's very intense. And there's a sense of community.
That sounds lovely.
And responsibility for your fellow friend that I think is it's nice.
I would love to have a Pauly D remix of Sherry to hit play on right now to take us out of this, but maybe
I feel like one probably exists. Probably like Pauly D. Like, how do you think about like Frankie Valli? That's my man.
All right, hold on, I'm just typing in Frankie Valli Jersey Shore.
I mean, you're just gonna get like a lot of things about like his dates in Atlantic City.
Frankie Valli, Pauly D. I bet they've both appeared at the same New Jersey State Fair or something, maybe different stages. Anyway, I think that's probably... Well, that's not how I would have expected Pauly D to spell his name. Anyway, that's probably gonna do it for us here on the... What's the show called? Podcasty for me about Jersey boys. Marie, we should say Mazel Tov on your recent nuptials.
Of course.
You've got
in the space
an additional name now. Do you feel that you've increased in power? How is it going with you're hyphenating?
I'm hyphenating. I'm still in the process of changing all of my legal documentation.
You keeping the middle name?
I got a new license. Keeping the middle name.
Okay.
Yeah. So now I'm Marie Martha, which is my middle name. Bardi-Salinas.
Why'd they have to do it to you?
They named me after both my grandmothers, Marie and Martha, and they couldn't decide which one would get
you're Batman and Superman's
placement.
kid?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. You're Batman and Superman's kid.
My parents realized that if my grandma Martha, people called her Marty.
Oh,
and so I would have been Marty. I would have been Marty Bardi.
Wow.
Sure, they couldn't have allowed that to happen. then I would have been too powerful. But
they had to limit you.
Yeah, that's probably the right choice. So you're the first person we've had on the show who has had anything happen to them between the 2 times they came on the show. When we've had our friends on before, they're like,
I'm sure
nothing
that's
new.
not
true of Chad. Not true of Chad.
Chad got a new apartment. He made some movies.
Yeah. Well, I think we're realizing we're just a podcast that doesn't explore people's lives at all. Real
Why would
things
we do that?
happen to people.
We got to talk about the movies. These movies that came out.
Well,
a
we
while
learned
ago.
about your hog fence.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Ian's hog videos.
We learned about your a cappella group.
Yes,
that's true.
Who performed with?
We learned about
who did they perform with?
We performed with Mike Love's Beach Boys at a fancy fundraiser that raised $1 million. Which tells you the type of people who are in attendance. 300 people raised $1 million.
Are you from like Newport Beach?
I'm from my high school is in Atherton, California, which for a while had the most expensive real estate in all of the United States.
Where Mark Zuckerberg lives.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're NorCal.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that's like the Newport Beach of Northern California, basically.
Gotcha.
So I didn't know that my club was bad back then. I just loved the Beach Boys, and then later realized that I had performed with the terrible guy that maybe drove Brian Wilson more insane.
And he's like he's like one of the few people who was like, no, I'll perform at a Trump rally. Like,
we forgot to mention that Frankie Valli may be a secret conservative, which I think adds to the nastiness of stealing black music. It's like when you hear about a white conservative rapper.
He did steal black music, because I think that that's what I was trying to ask.
Yeah.
Like they wrote all of their songs are originals.
I mean, the doo-wop style is, I think, appropriated, but the pop sheen that Bob Gaudio puts on it. They also Bob Crew at one point says that he basically in the movie thinks that he has invented double tracking, which he distinctly did not. Buddy Holly did that. Les Paul and Mary Ford did that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's cool to do. Like, don't get me wrong, but it's never been done before. Yeah, I mean, I think their music is as much as any. It's as guilty of cultural appropriation as literally any American popular music.
Right.
Yes.
Right. But I guess if Elvis came out and said like, well, the black community is like, they're the reason that they struggle so much as their own people or something, then I would. That's very nasty to me.
Like Ted Nugent.
Yeah.
Like, Ted Nugent, do you know where the guitar comes from? Like, do you know where stringed instruments come from? Anyway, Ted Nugent's going to be joining us for our episode next week on American Sniper. That's not true. That'd be cool,
that's
though.
a must listen.
Yeah, that we should maybe get him on. Remember when Anthony Bourdain went to Ted Nugent's farm where he keeps a zebra that he can shoot it later?
Oh my God. No, I don't know about this.
Yeah, it's cool.
Wait, can I just bring something up real quick?
Please.
Because I just learned about this today as I was Googling Frankie Valli. Are you guys familiar with this like documentary that came out in, I think, the 70s that was all World War II and like Nazi footage that was scored to covers of Beatles songs, including A Day in the Life sung by Frankie Valli?
What is it called?
And it was, hold on, I gotta look this shit up.
Now we have some outro music.
Yeah, I think legally we definitely don't, but fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, it's like a lost doc. It was only in theaters for like.
Oh, is it a lost film?
Yeah, for like a week because it was so. People were so offended by it.
Poorly received. Yeah.
And now it like doesn't have a like proper home release. Like it's just like I think it's called World War II and all that, or like all that and
all
World
this
War
in
II.
World War
all
II.
this in World War II.
Yep, it is a musical documentary directed by Susan Winslow.
Like all this in World War II.
No, like the Roman numeral II.
What do you think about My Punch Up though? Do you like that?
Yeah, it's good. That was good.
Oh, Frankie Valli lives in
I think it's
Encino. Let's go. We should go. So we should say Ian's coming to town soon.
That's right.
We'll see which of us uses more towels when we go on a special little boys trip. So I got that to look forward to.
Can't wait to hear who pees in the sink.
Yep.
The answer may surprise you. And with that tantalizing tease, I think we should probably close things up here. Marie, thank you so much for coming back to talk Jersey
Thanks
Boys
for having me.
with us.
Yeah, thank you, Marie. This is great.
I guess you changed my mind. I hope you changed my mind today. Do you have anything you would like to plug besides, of course, your blissful marriage?
We're going to end the year on Blank Check with hopefully 2 doses of the Bardi Party.
Hell yeah.
We got our Maestro episode coming up.
Nice.
And then our grand Aquaman 2 /
Are you doing Wonka
episode. We're doing Wonkaman.
That's so exciting.
Which I willed into existence because I do not give 2 shits about Aquaman. And I don't know. It feels like a great way to end the year that was 2023 by talking about the death of the superhero franchise and the emergence of Wonka.
Well, and sort of like forced amnesia, which is what I feel when I watched the Aquaman film. I finished the film and immediately just could not say anything that happened.
I'm an Aquaman defender for the underwater war sequence alone. I think the underwater war in Aquaman with all the lasers and shit is James Wan bug nuts.
I haven't even seen Aquaman. Like, should I see Aquaman before I see Aquaman 2? Would it be funnier if I don't see Aquaman? It would be funnier.
Probably be funnier if you haven't seen it. Yeah.
I first of all, Ian is excited for the film Wonka, where we'll learn how Willy became Wonka. True. Because Ian wants to find out how Willy became red and scabbed.
Yeah,
that's just Ian's penis joke. Marie, you're going to be the only reason that I watch Wonka. I had no intention of seeing Wonka until on the Blank Check episode on The Killer. You mentioned Wonkaman, and I thought, God damn it, now I have to see Wonka. It looks.
Have you seen the trailer?
Yeah, Timmy looks awful. Like he has.
Well, I bring this up not because of Timmy, but because it's apparently like political.
Yeah.
Wonka's trying to bring the chocolate to the people.
Right. Well, there's that misguided sequence in the trailer where he keeps practicing the little somersault. Like he has to learn how to do the somersault where he pretends to trip. That's not true. That doesn't happen in the show.
Oh, is that true? Okay.
No, it's not.
Did you guys see that
I don't remember
photoshopped picture of Kyle Rittenhouse where he looked like Augustus Gloop?
Yes, Augustus Gloop.
I thought it was real. It got me for
too.
a second.
I was disappointed.
Yeah, it's too bad.
Once I zoomed in.
It's too bad. Yeah, did you see this? I'll show it to you after the show.
No, I haven't seen this.
All right.
Thanks.
Well, Marie, you're a shining light on the Blank Check podcast. Those buffoons from your high school band. They're nothing without you.
Can we find dance floor diplomacy anytime soon?
Yes.
You can definitely Google them and probably find, because they kept doing this shit during when they were at Sarah Lawrence and I was at NYU. Theo Anthony, I don't know if you know who that is. He's like a cool guy who makes docs.
Yeah,
he did one of their music videos. It's a very strange chapter of my history. This was after I got kicked out of the band, but they continued trying to be a thing.
I love when my band is written up in the Yale Daily News. Makes me feel rock and roll.
Well, that's pretty rock and roll.
And that's sort of what the movie's all about. That's gonna about do it for us. Ian, do you have any of your silly shit to say that you want to?
Nope, don't think so.
Good. We'll post more hog pics and vids on the podcast for me Instagram. That's a promise. Oh, I also did want to say, tying it back to your previous appearance on this show, Marie, I believe on our episode on A Perfect World, we did talk about the film Oy Vey, My Son is Gay. Do you remember that? Did we talk about that?
Yeah, we did.
The son is played by John Lloyd Young, star of Jersey Bush. Is that insane?
Wow.
Does that make you... that's some freaky Matrix shit.
I was sad looking at his I guess Wikipedia or whatever. He doesn't really do anything anymore.
Yeah, he just performs a What a Night at the Obama White House, which they don't have anymore.
The ambassador of Japan.
Yeah. All right, that's gonna do it for us. Remember to subscribe, rate us, write a review. It helps us on the algorithm. If you like the show, tell a friend, tell your dad, say it directly to the camera. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Podcastiforme. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, or you're interested in co-hosting a two-person Clint Eastwood podcast, you can email us at podcastiforme@gmail.com. All this is at podcastiforme.com and also at shootingyourselfinthehead.com. And our Patreon is available, patreon.com/podcastiforme. We will, when this comes out, we either have just discussed A Fistful of Dollars or Rat Boy, so check that out. Thank you to Jeremy Allison for our artwork. Thank you, Ian, for that beautiful Auburn hog of yours.
You're welcome.
And join us next week for American Sniper. Bye.
Bye.